I flew to Oklahoma to visit my friend and build his dream office. My buddy Larry has been mine and Allie's rock for the last couple years. No matter how silly or major the situation, he is always there to just listen or help in any way he possibly can. The community knows him as Larry the Tax Guy, and if you have seen him in our live streams or in our comments, it is clear to see that he is our #1 supporter. We had 3 goals for this setup. First being an eye-catching face cam, so when he's in client meetings, he stands out and looks super professional. The second being a top-down camera angle that allows him to broadcast his whiteboard, so when he's drawing out different scenarios while explaining to his clients in a meeting, he can show that camera angle and kind of walk them through different scenarios step by step. Lastly, we wanted this to be a hybrid setup because there's 3 different use cases for this office. The first being is obviously him when he's working during the day. The second being later on at night when he's playing League of Legends with all of his friends, me included, even though he carries me. And 3, when his wife takes over the room and uses it for her podcast. So I wanted to make sure everything was very flexible and very customizable depending on the situation. Super RGB lights isn't necessary professional, but at night if he wants to switch to it, he can. And when his wife is using her podcast, we can switch different colors of the room to maybe a pink or a purple to make things a little bit more girly. For the actual build, it was pretty simple. Larry didn't want to paint the room, so that saved us a bunch of time. Also, whenever he bought tech, he always kind of asked me questions, so he ended up buying very similar products, or if not the exact same product that I use in my everyday setup, so I know what I'm getting myself into. Lastly, with my wife being here and focusing on the kid, he also has a wife and a kid that was born at a similar time to me, so they kind of hung out and allowed me to drag Larry in here and help me with the build. The first day of every build is my least favorite. In this case, we had to just break everything down, including his desk, his monitors, his computer, and everything, and just get it out of the room and start with a blank canvas. So the first thing we did was unmount his 5 monitors and carry those out of the room, followed by his monitor arms, and then eventually his computer and everything else that was on his desk. After removing everything from the desks and all the wires that were attached to it, we then carried out his mixed matched standing desks out of the room and brought them to the garage. After a long night of moving, we were ready to start preparing his butcher block countertops that were going to be the tops of his new L-shaped desk. We ended up using his old desk to help us not break our backs when oiling the new tabletops. Butcher blocks really did absorb this oil pretty well, but we did multiple coats, and then at the end, anything that was excess we wiped off and let it just soak in for the rest of the night. The following morning, it was time to start building the desk. Again, we went with 2 6-foot long butcher block countertops from Home Depot and legs and hardware from Amazon. When building these type of desks, I like starting with it upside down. It's a lot easier for me to work with gravity than against it. It also allows me to start planning out the layout of where the legs are going to go, where the brackets between the desks are going to go, as well as even start planning out the wire management for the setup. When mounting all of this hardware to the bottom of the desk, I made sure not to mount the desks together just yet. I do that at the very end when I flip the desks over and put them into place. It's a lot easier to flip the desks if they're separate, and when you're putting them together, you want to make sure that seam is absolutely perfect, and then attach the desks together. If you're interested in any of the hardware or materials I used for this desk build, they will all be listed in the description below with an Amazon affiliate link, so if you're going to buy anything, it does support Allie and I. Once the desk was built and in place, it was time for the fun stuff, the tech. I wanted to start with the lighting because it was just a lot easier to have better light in the room to continue the build. All we had was a fan light in the middle of the room, and that just wasn't cutting it. For his key light, we went with an Amaran 150C, and we partnered that up with a Godox 33.5-inch shallow softbox. This is all getting held up by a long Elgato arm that's mounted to the corner of the desk. For his hair light, we also went with an Amaran 150C. This was mounted in the top left corner of his room and partnered with a Amaran mini softbox. This is again just to separate him from the background, and I know it may seem like a little overkill for both those lights in this small space, but again, we wanted the flexibility of different colors when it came to his wife's podcast, or even when he's gaming later on at night. To help fill in the shadow side of his face, we went with a fill light from Govee. These are light bars that attach directly to the wall, and again, they can be customized to whatever color they want to cast on the shadow side of his face. For the practical lights in his camera view, we went with an Elgato floor lamp 2, as well as an Edison bulb lamp that is placed on his desk. Once we got all the lights situated, it was time to start laying out the monitors. The first thing we had to do was bring in the monitor arms. These arms are from Ergotron. They're very expensive, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend buying them now. He bought them a while ago at the same time I did because there weren't aren't many options for vertical mounted, stacked, flexible monitor arms. But now there's plenty of different options on Amazon, so I would go check those out. But we use them because we have them. So the first thing we did was kind of lay out the basic layout. We're going to go with one center monitor, which is his Samsung 32-inch 240 Hz 4K monitor. For his exterior monitors, we went with all HyperX 27-inch 165 Hz 1440p monitors, and those are dual stacked on the right and left side of his main display. Before bringing in his monster of a computer that he got at Power GPU, I wanted to give it a once over cleaning, so we brought it to the garage and blew it out. His computer has an ROG RTX 4090, an Intel i9 13900K, 32 gigs of RAM, an ROG Hero motherboard, two 2TB NVMe's, an AIO with the screen on it, 9 blackout fans, and all of those parts are in an Asus TUF 502 case. With the computer now on the desk, it was time to start wiring in the monitors. It's usually pretty tedious for wire management when it comes to these setups, but with the wire troughs, it wasn't too bad. With a couple cable ties and feeding the wires through the monitor arms, it wasn't too bad. And again, under the desk, you just kind of tuck it in that trough and you're good to go. We also added an extra HDMI for his main display to run to his PS5. Now that his monitor layout was situated, it was time to mount his camera. For his main camera, he has a Canon EOS R camera body with a 50mm lens. To power that camera, we went with the dummy battery, and to get the image from the camera to the computer, we went with the HDMI port on the side of the camera to a capture card that's mounted the inside of his computer. Pretty simple. For the top-down camera, we went with a basic Elgato face cam. Both these cameras are mounted to the desk using different arms. The only difference with the Elgato camera, it is mounted to an arm that has 2 elbows, allowing me to reach over his main monitor and look down on his keyboard area where he's going to bring his whiteboard and show his clients. For his audio setup, we were going with the Beacon Studio to run his XLR microphone. Partner with that, we have the Beacon Mix Create that allows him to control all of his different audio inputs individually. Also for Beacon, we're using the Beacon mic arm that's holding his Shure SM7B. We didn't get around to making any buttons for it just yet, but he does have the Elgato Stream Deck XL. I plan on really utilizing and diving deep into this product with him because I really do think it'll help him in his everyday job, setting up hotkeys and even multi-action keys. So when he's not utilizing his headphones that are plugged directly into the Beacon Studio, we do have speakers that are placed on his desk. He can very easily switch between his headphones and these speakers with the Beacon app by holding any of the buttons on either of the products, and it will switch between the 2 different inputs. For his main peripherals, he's using a Logitech G915 keyboard and a Pro X Superlight 2 for his mouse. All of the wires associated with all of the products I just mentioned are also tucked into that same wire trough and brought over to the computer. For the finishing touches around the room, we added a few things that we felt just made sense. A charging station with wire clips that allow your wires to not fall behind the desk and to charge all the different products that he has in his room that he uses on a daily basis. We also added a second Elgato face cam to the back of his room to showcase and show his entire new setup. We utilized a very long USB active cable for this, and it works great. We also added a few large sound panels to the room, one placed behind the camera that he talks to during all of his meetings, and another one to the left side of the room, which it was a big open wall, and we felt it was best to put it there. We also used a very thin, flat white Ethernet cable that allowed me to then hardwire his computer. In this room, the port to get internet into this room was on the opposite side, so I had to run this up and around the molding of the back closet behind me. And because of the wire we chose, you can't even really see the wire. It came with these little brackets too to kind of help mount it to all the different moldings, and I think it came out amazing. I really think we did a great job of utilizing the space that we had, and obviously Larry helped with the build, so surprising him with the finished product wasn't a thing because he built it with me. But if you guys do want to see a surprise and a crazy reaction, you can go back to our last video where I surprised my other friend Jesse with his dream office at his warehouse, and his reaction was amazing. I'm truly blessed to have met someone as amazing as Larry. To not go into too much detail, but he has literally moved mountains to allow me and Allie to be in the position we're in North Carolina. I love him to death, and I can't imagine going a day without talking to him or FaceTiming or just checking in on him and the wife. As long as he knows he always has someone in his corner, because I know I always have someone in mine. As he says, one team, one fight. I love you, buddy, and I hope you enjoy The Office. If you're still here and watching, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you, and I know time is hard to come by, so taking a little bit out of your day to watch this video really means the world to me. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, and thank you so much for being here. I'm going to end the video a little bit different than usual. I'm going to end it with a little Larry pizzazz. Deuces and Magooses.